Welcome, everyone.
I'm Jennifer,
I'm Jessica, and you're listening to The Way, the Truth, and the Lies.
where we talk about our personal experiences with spirituality and faith.
Today, we want to talk about why homophobia makes sense for many Christians and how it affects queer people.
Now, first of all, we want to make it clear that just because you're a Christian who was raised with homophobic views does not necessarily make you a bad person. Because within the Christian system, you are so heavily indoctrinated that you can't help but think this way. And even if you question it, the church pushes back and doubles down on why same-sex attraction is a sin. So it's actually incredibly difficult to find your way out of this thinking.
At the same time, many Christians try to act as loving as they can towards the queer community, even if, of course, their ability to love will be limited by their homophobic beliefs. The most ridiculous sentence there being, "We love the sinner, but hate the sin." Many homophobic Christians do not have malintent, but come from a misguided place of them trying to quote-unquote save the queer community. And they don't call themselves homophobes because they don't hate queer people and might even get offended if somebody calls them out on actually being homophobic. Now, let's look more into why homophobia makes sense for a lot of Christians.
The number one reason is, of course, it's written in the Bible that it's a sin. It's black and white, it's right there, you can't deny it. And we picked out 3 Bible verses as examples. In fact, just so you know, there's not a lot. So depending on who you ask, there's like 5 to 10, most people say 7 verses that actually even talk about this. The 2 I'm going to read, they're both from Leviticus. So first one is Leviticus 18, verse 22. Do not have sexual relations with a man as one does with a woman. That is detestable. And then later, 20, verse 13. If a man has sexual relations with a man as one does with a woman, both of them have done what is detestable. They are to be put to death. Their blood will be on their own heads.
So lesbians, you're fine. Is what I read here. It's just the men. No, of course, Christians say this goes both ways. We looked at the Old Testament and we also found one verse in the New Testament, which is Romans 1, verses 26 to 27. Because of this, God gave them over to shameful lusts. Even their women exchanged natural sexual relations for unnatural ones. In the same way, the men also abandoned natural relations with women and were inflamed with lust for one another. Men committed shameful acts with other men and received in themselves the due penalty for their error. So lesbians aren't fine anymore. Dang it.
Yeah.
They fixed that in the New Testament.
A lot of Christians, and especially like the evangelical Christians that we grew up with, they really truly believe that everything that's in the Bible is the word of God.
Yeah.
And shows his true will for how we are to live and who he is. And it must be taken at face value because God is the same today, yesterday, and tomorrow. Like just because it was written 2,000 years ago or even longer ago doesn't mean it's just suddenly not true anymore just because times are changing. Like you can't just pick and choose whatever you want, right? That's what they will say. You have to stay true to what the Bible says, or else, like, what do you even believe in? Like, how do you even justify your beliefs? It's like the word of God, the Bible, is so essential for them to believe in because it's almost like the only stable thing throughout all the changing times and throughout all like the different types of churches. Like, no, the Bible and what's in the Bible won't change, and so it's seen as this necessary thing to really, really hold on to. But then at the same time, Christians can't fully ignore that times are changing and that the world has become, in a lot of places, a lot more open towards queer people. And so for that reason, the argument, well, it's written in the Bible. Even for a lot of Christians, that's not enough anymore. And they will try to find extra arguments, like, okay, so the Bible says this, but why would God say that, right? They try to find the reasons, and they will come up with a bunch of justifications that we're going to get into now, which like for like high theologians, they don't really care. They're just like, no, it's written in the Bible, and they will discuss just about the biblical value of things. But for the everyday Christian, they often need more basic explanations.
Such as, and this is the most common one, it's not natural. I've heard this at least like a million times before. And then they add to this, also animals don't have same-sex attractions, so why would humans? Which I always think is funny because they always say, but we're not animals. We didn't come from the monkey. But then they use this as an argument. So I'm like, so you always complain about, please don't compare me to an animal. But now you're like, so I never understood this. But also concerning the whole, it's not natural. The argument is that same-sex couples can't have children together. They cannot create children. You need a male and a female to create life, basically. And since God says, go and be fruitful and multiply, they can't fulfill that order, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so also it's the whole thing, male and female bodies are designed to fit together.
Mm-hmm.
And not the other way around, So this argument is always the first one you hear, you're confronted with when talking to someone of this faith.
Yeah, and that also goes hand in hand with the claim that same-sex couples can't raise children well without like messing them up psychologically, because a kid needs a mother and a father. And this whole thing of a kid needs a mother and a father is incredibly important in the Christian community in general. Like, it's also why divorce, especially when you have children, is a huge issue, because you know your kids need a mother and a father. And so same-sex couples, it's just no, they will mess up their kids. That's it.
Yep. The next thing you always hear is that sexuality is a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'll just leave it here.
They truly believe that. They truly believe their sexuality is a choice.
And that you can choose to be gay or straight or whatever.
Yeah. And so that's also, I think, why they often don't view themselves as, like, we don't hate queer people, because they don't see it as something that you're born with.
Yeah.
It's just something you chose to do. It's like you would choose to hit someone in the face. Of course, I won't condone that. You shouldn't make bad choices, right? But I will still love you even if you hit someone in the face. But I will tell you that that's a bad choice to make.
Mm-hmm.
And then oftentimes when people say, no, but I've felt this way all my life, they will explain these queer feelings, these same-sex attraction, away with childhood trauma. The three most common ones that I've heard is either you've experienced sexual abuse as a child, or you had a very dominant mother and a very weak father, for example, or like, Christians like the typical, like, men are the head of the family and women submit. And so they're like, if that's turned around, if the woman is the boss of the family,
oh my,
then that can make you gay.
Sorry, I just can't hold my "this is so ridiculous" laugh back any longer. But we'll get into more of that later. But come on.
For now, we're just explaining the arguments without commenting too much.
Trying not to comment too much, but it's very hard.
And then also what we've heard a lot is, for example, when a guy feels attracted to men, that is often because they had an absent father or a bad relationship with a father. Vice versa for a woman, they didn't have a loving mother, then they will feel attracted to women. Those are the three basic childhood traumas. Could turn you gay.
Just in case you didn't know. Another argument of why it can't work is that...
That's a good one.
I don't know if you knew this, and this is totally scientifically correct. Men want more sex than women. And if there's no woman to balance that lust out, all the men will do is have sex all day, and we can't have that. And then also two women together will just be out of control emotionally, because we're such emotional beings. And there's no rational mind to balance that out.
Yes. That's the most convincing argument, I think.
The most convincing, not at all misogynistic way to view this.
We also have to say that there is such a thing as an ex-gay community.
Yeah.
And they have a large impact on the church because, of course, the church will jump on them and want to hear everything they have to say and use it as arguments. So, from what I've heard from ex-gays, they will often also use like similar arguments. They will be like, well, one day I just realized that it was my childhood trauma. Or they will say, well, I just made the choice. I made the choice to no longer be gay.
Yeah.
And it worked. And now I'm married happily. Or they will say things like, well, when I was only having, like, for example, a man only having sex with other men, and then they're like, well, it was always so superficial and it wasn't very deep and it was all about sex. And so it was all just about lust in the end. And so now with a woman, it's very different, it's very deep. So they will you can Google ex-gay stories and you'll hear all kinds of stuff. So those stories and the things they say are taken at face value by the church, whereas all the people who are also queer and say, no, that didn't work for me, they're like ignored.
Yeah. There's more of those.
Oh, there's a lot more of them, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember just a very quick one of those ex-gays, so to say, visited my DTS in Identity Week and told us about how it's all the choice. And that like presentation, that talk really stayed with me for a long time because I believed that, I just really trusted that that was the truth. I took it at face value, like you said.
Yeah, or they'd say like God healed me from that. That's also something you'll hear.
Yeah, they say I prayed for 15 years and it worked at year 15 or something, And I always wondered maybe they're just bi.
Maybe some of them are bi, but then also I think others are just really suppressing everything.
For that.
So hard.
Oh, yeah. Oh, another argument, and someone said that to me. I hadn't talked to them for years, and then I suddenly had a voice message from them where they told me they are against pride parades and the whole queer positive movement because they see it as a rebellion against God. Because in their head, there is a spirit of captivity in pride. And God wants freedom. And there's no freedom in pride.
And the word pride is taken incredibly literally, as in like meaning, I'm prideful. And of course, the Bible talks about how you shouldn't be proud. And so the fact that they call themselves pride, it's already a sign for Christians that it can only be bad.
Yeah.
I mean, you called yourself after another sin.
You call yourself out. Haha.
Yeah. You're telling us who you are.
Yeah.
Another argument is that they will say, well, when I see a same-sex couple engaging in physical touch, then I feel naturally disgusted. And so that is already a sign that like the Holy Spirit is moving inside me, or that something inside me just knows that it's wrong and that it's perverse. And it's another thing relating back to it's just not natural. And I can feel that with the disgust that I experience.
Heard that a lot of times. Experienced it myself as well.
Yeah.
And coming back to the whole pride thing, because we mentioned it a moment ago, a lot of times we also encountered just look at those queer people in the streets, go to pride parades, and you just see how they act and how they present themselves, and see how so many hate God. They don't live Christian values outside of their queerness, homosexuality. Obviously, all of how they act is from the devil because it's not Christian.
Yeah. They don't go to church. They don't love Jesus.
Yeah.
Something that I've heard also, I think this was something I've heard more also from ex-gays. For example, if you have a woman who's attracted to women, that actually, when God created her, he just put a lot of love for women, like just really beautiful, divine, holy love into her heart for women. And then the devil came and he twisted that into something perverse.
Yeah, I heard that so many times. I heard it from someone who said that to me once, like, I thought I was into women, but no, actually, God just put this big love for women in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
The closet is glass, dear. Come out. You're fine. And then the final argument that we've encountered is that some Christians do believe that you are born with it, but it's a result of the original sin. Original sin, what is that? Of course, we are talking about Adam and Eve here, when they ate the fruit, the forbidden fruit of the tree, and then
Mm-hmm.
had the big fall of humanity. Original sin, that's that.
Yeah, so this original sin, the sin of eating the fruit on the tree, corrupted the earth. And that's why we have sickness, that's why we have storms, that's why we have so many bad things happening. And then those people who believe that you are born with the same-sex attraction think that it's basically like an illness. It's like how some people are born blind. You're born with that. But as a matter of fact, not all Christians are automatically homophobic. I mean, I think sadly the bigger part of them are, just because of the whole thing of like it's written in the Bible. But there are people and churches who are open for the queer community, and where they can even like not just participate, but even have leadership roles and everything. Like they're completely included just as everybody else. Those churches will be seen as not real Christians by the other churches, and they will be seen as having given in to the pressure of this time and of this world. But they do have their own arguments against, all the other arguments that we've said so far. Just concerning alone the whole thing of, well, it's written in the Bible. You can't just say that you take the Bible literally and then not actually take it literally, right? Because if you say, okay, but it's written in the Bible, two people of the same sex can't be together romantically and sexually, then you also need to shut up in church when you're a woman and wear something to cover your head, and also stone people for like, I don't know, all kinds of stuff. We go into Leviticus. You're stoned for so many things.
Oh, yeah.
If you wear the clothes of two different cloths, or oh gosh, I don't even remember all that. It's very
It's like
nonsensical.
when you work on the Sabbath,
Yes.
or when you plant grain a certain way next to something else, you can be stoned for that.
And so the fun thing is that because obviously keeping to all those rules would inconvenience many, many people. And so Christians will always talk about like, no, we have to put it in the historical context. But then when it doesn't inconvenience that many people, but just like a minority, suddenly they're very happy to take it literally and don't care at all about the historical context. Many of those Christians do not actually believe that the Bible is to be taken literally, and see it more as kind of something metaphorical or something where God is just kind of showing his character or whatever. And the thing is, so when something that these Christians might also say is like, if you just look at, not word for word and taking everything so literally, but putting it more in a historical context. But if you look at like, what does the Bible say globally, generally, when talking about sex? They will find 4 common rules. The first of them being fidelity. If you have a sexual partner, you stay true to them. You don't have just sex with all kinds of people. Secondly, the body is seen as a temple, and so it needs to be respected. So you have sex in a healthy way, don't harm each other, don't harm yourself with it. Then pleasure shouldn't become idolatry, meaning it shouldn't be something you put above God and that you start to worship and your whole life just starts to revolve around that. And then the fourth one being consent. And if we take these 4 points and put them in the historical context of back then, we can see that like it wasn't even really possible back then to really live same-sex relationships in this way, because there was no marriage for homosexual people. There was no like, oh, we're just in love and we'll be together forever, you know, like the whole thing of the fidelity was already kind of ruled out. Also, a lot of times it would be like kind of a master student situation where it was kind of abusive. And the historical context of how same-sex relationships were lived back then, they were so different from what we see nowadays, where we can really see these people who just love each other and they just want to be together, and then the church says no, you can't. And so they're like, no. When Paul was writing those letters, he didn't even know people like that. And so how could he even address that? He didn't. He obviously didn't address that. He didn't address two people being in love. He was addressing like those systems of power. That's kind of the argument, is like, please put it in an historical context, because you're doing that with everything else, right? So why not with that?
Yeah, why are you cherry picking?
Mm-hmm.
One very important thing to mention is also, like Jenny already briefly said, is that there are not many verses that support homophobia.
Mm-hmm.
Most importantly, the J-man, Mr. Jesus, never said anything against it or about it. Anything homophobic you read about in the New Testament is all from one of his followers, not from him. So that's important to mention. Also, the word homosexuality did not even exist back then. So when the Bible was written, homosexuality was not even a term. So if you have a Bible and you read this term, then it's definitely a false translation that was changed to fit the church or whoever translated it, to fit whatever their stigma was, whatever, they wanted the Bible to say. Don't forget that. And in fact, there are so many other things that are mentioned so much more often than anything about gay people that people ignore. Like how to deal with money, or how to love people, and how to give to the poor, all of those values, those are not central topics in the church for whatever reason. It's more important to hate on gay people, even though their book they're basing everything on talks about money and idolizing people and stuff like that much more often. And there's entire stories about what happened to people when they idolized other people or money, and how they were punished, right? There's so many more stories and metaphors, whatever, for situations like that, but that's not central at all. And it does make you question why.
I think it's quite obvious that it's the clearest way that the church nowadays can create an us versus them scenario.
Yes.
Because, yes, with saying we only have sex in marriage, we only have same sex, we don't have same
Wait.
sex. We just treat sex completely differently than the rest of the world. They can make such a clear distinction between themselves and the world. If you put the distinction on, no, we're the ones who are super loving, it gets so much more difficult. First of all, it costs you so much more, and it costs everyone. Secondly, there are so many loving non-Christians. So you would have to be so incredibly loving to really say, oh, us versus them. So this is just an easy topic to create some distinction between yourselves and the world.
Yeah.
Then coming to the argument of it's not natural. Well, first of all, if you heard the thing with like gay animals don't exist, maybe you were already thinking, what? What's with this misinformation? Because in fact, over 1,500 animal species have been found up till now that do in fact have homosexuality or bisexuality as something occurring incredibly naturally among them. So just think about that, 1,500 animal species. And this is like mammals, insects, everything in between. It's just insane. Like you can find this with so many, but so many Christians don't know that.
Yeah, I didn't.
And that's just crazy. It's used as an argument, and it can be used as an argument because people will just not inform themselves. And then also the argument of it's not natural because you can't have kids it's brutal.
Yeah.
Because the claim then, if you really think about it, is sex is only allowed to create children, or if you can have children, but there are people who are infertile, right? So are we going to tell them now you shouldn't be in romantic relationships, you shouldn't get married to anybody because, well, you can't get kids?
That's so mean.
Like, that is cruel.
That's so cruel.
That's cruel.
Yeah.
But they don't think that far, right? They're just like, well, it's not natural, blah, blah, blah. And then also in terms of they can't raise stable children together, that is scientifically so just, so wrong. Because we know at this point that actually to turn out healthy and mentally stable, you only need one stable parent, not even two. You only need one, and the gender doesn't matter, who gives you emotional safety and to make you feel just safe and good and consistent, a very consistent parent. And with that, you're going to grow into a healthy human being.
Yeah.
So we don't even need mother and father. We basically only need one. Obviously, if you have two partners, you're going to have more resources to give to your child, and it's just easier to raise the child. But if they're doing an amazing job, just the one parent, they are enough for a child to grow up healthy.
And I think actually it's a very soothing thing to hear for single parents.
I think so too.
They probably stress out. They're like, am I going to be enough? Yeah, you are.
You know, it's fun. The first time I heard about this was when I was in a clinic, and they told us that. And I was still very, very Christian back then. And I was like, no, that can't be true. That must be a lie. Like, I was so resistant to that. I was like, that's propaganda.
Yeah, me too. I remember watching, do you remember the Home Edit, where they go into celebrities' homes and organize them? And there is who's the actor from How I Met Your Mother who plays Barney?
Neil Patrick Harris.
Neil Patrick Harris, right. I don't know if him and his partner are still together, but they made like a playroom for their kids. And I remember when I was like super Christian, I was like, I felt so sad for the daughter because she doesn't have like a female, blah, blah. And then I watched it again later when I wasn't Christian anymore, and I saw just how loved and cared for both of their children were and how happy they were and how obvious it was that they didn't lack anything. Like, these two men made an entire floor just for their playroom. I mean, hello. Who cares if they have a mom?
That's just to compensate. That's just to compensate that there's no woman involved.
No, it's like they were so loved, and it was so sweet. And I was like, wow, I was so blind to that because I was like, oh, I need a mother. No, they didn't.
It can really make you blind, right? Because all you're seeing is the indoctrination that you've received. And you can't even see the love in front of your eyes.
Right. Now coming to our big old friend, sexuality is a choice. Well, that is obviously utterly disproven by science. And I just want to say I think many women might like to choose to be gay in a world that we live in right now. If it was a choice. But yeah, let's put a pin in the whole thing, and we'll talk about this more later when we get into personal experiences and stuff like that. But I also wanted to come back to this not conversation, it was just thrown at me through voice memo from this person I once knew, where they said to me that there is no freedom in pride. That's so ridiculous because the essence of pride is freedom. It's freedom to be who you are without judgment from others. And again, this person was so blinded by their hatred. If they really went to a pride parade and looked and saw, they would see how free these people are and how happy and how proud. Yes, they're proud, but of course they're proud because they were never allowed to be proud. They always had to hide it. And of course, now that you're allowed to be this, of course you're going to be proud, but you're also going to be free. So this entire argument, you could just take that and throw it into the bathroom, into the toilet, flush it down.
Yeah, I want to say something about that because I was at my first Pride Parade last year in Bern.
That's in Switzerland. for people who don't know.
That's in Switzerland.
Switzerland.
It's the capital of Switzerland. And I was blown away because I've been to like demos and stuff sometimes, and usually there's a very aggressive or kind of almost depressing mood. I mean, a pride parade also has a sense of like, right, we wanna make a statement, but there was nothing aggressive about it. The opposite. It's the most loving thing that I've maybe ever experienced of like a large group of people coming together. Everyone was so kind to each other. Everyone was so loving. People were just celebrating each other. I was like, gosh, I don't know if I would have seen that if I came here with my indoctrinated mind. But now that I can see it, it's in the air. And it's sad that people who follow a religion that's supposedly supposed to be about love will completely miss that. And not even be able to experience this place of acceptance and love. And it was just so beautiful. Like there would be, I remember this old married couple who were just at their window and dancing and celebrating and crying because after, everybody was cheering them on, and then they started to cry because they were so moved by the parade and because people were treating them with so much love. Like it was beautiful. It was just beautiful. And that's kind of my issue also, is that Christians, they won't do the research. They won't go like in the field, right? Especially not the field research. They just want their beliefs to be confirmed.
Yeah.
And like, gosh, you guys are missing out. You're actually missing out on some of the things that are essential to your religion, like love and acceptance and just all the kindness. And that's sad. Sad for them too.
That is very sad.
Also about I naturally feel disgusted. So the thing with what we feel disgusted about is that for most things, we're actually trained to feel disgusted about certain things. Like when we're kids, it's like also how we will be trained for most things that we're afraid of, for example, right? We will watch our parents, first of all, to be like, how are they reacting to this? How are they reacting to that? And then we will kind of copy their emotions. And disgust is really a big emotion for that. Like so many of the things that we as grown-ups feel disgusted by, kids will not naturally feel disgusted by. And you can see this also, like if you, for example, if you grow up with queer parents, right, like the kids of Neil Patrick Harris and his husband, I don't think they're just feeling disgusted all the time. I think they...
Imagine.
Yeah, just imagine they're just constantly like, I just have this disgust. I don't know where it's coming from. And so you are trained either by your parents or by the church later to feel this disgust. And not just that, right? There's also a lot of homophobia outside of the church and in society. Queer people are made fun of even at school, right? Oh my gosh, you're gay, homo, blah, blah, blah. Like, if you're constantly met with this kind of rhetoric, you're going to feel disgusted, but it's not a natural thing that's just occurring inside you. It's something that you are conditioned to feel. And that's a very important distinction to make.
Yeah. I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but when we used to watch Pretty Little Liars and anything with Emily and her partners came on, Mom would skip it.
Oh, yeah.
Because she's like, "Oh, we don't need to see that." But we kept in all the Ezria scenes, right? Because that wasn't problematic.
That wasn't gross. A teacher and a student is totally fine.
Yeah, but two girls?
No, I mean, okay, listen, our mom has made progress.
Yes,
We're going to talk about our childhood later, but like, don't hate our mom, okay?
No.
She's really worked on herself.
And coming to our final argument, the gays hate God. Not to call out hypocrite, but I will. Of course, they don't come to church and learn about your God because you don't give them space in church. You always say, "Come as you are. We welcome you." And then they're like, "Hi, I'm queer." And they're like, "Oh, wait. Before you can enter, change.
Change who you are.
Yeah, change who you are. You cannot be this in front of God. You can come back when you change that. And then we will welcome you into the fold." Okay, great. That's not at all problematic. But then you also condemn them for not being in church when you treat them like thus. And it's like, hypocrite! It's the only thing I can scream, because it's like, it's so hypocritical to me, because I'm like, you created this vicious cycle that they're trapped in, because if they came to church and couldn't change this about themselves, you would send them away, you would judge them, hate them, and then you would still hate on them even more, because so why aren't you even in church then anymore? And it's like, because you're not letting them in. This argument also really, really falls flat, because you can't condemn someone for a system you set up for them to fail in.
Absolutely.
That's just dumb.
Yeah. And a lot of queer people have religious trauma.
Yes.
Because they grew up with Christian families, or like maybe had to go do their communion in the Catholic Church or whatever. And so they were met with this intense rejection, and now you wonder why they hate the church.
I think you hated them first, babe.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's just stupid. But I know that that was an argument that was very much in my mind back then. It was like, well, just look at how they live. Not having the intelligence to question that, you know? But if we're already on that topic, let's look at how are queer people actually treated by the church in more detail. And for this, we have to say that there are immense differences between different churches. Like, there are definitely those where it's really just there's no love, there's only condemnation, where their families will, if you come out, they won't talk to them anymore, and they're intensely ostracized, and it's cruel, it's terrible, and it's awful. But this isn't the case, like these extreme bullying scenarios, or pushing you to the side, or we will no longer talk to you scenarios. They aren't everywhere. Absolutely not.
Yeah. So in some churches, there is a theology that's quite popular where having same-sex attraction is okay. So you're not ostracized for that. What you're ostracized for is acting on it, because they see the acting on these feelings as the sin. So basically, if you're gay, just stay abstinent and you're fine. Mormons, for example, believe this. And it comes back to that the Bible basically, as we read before, only talks about the act of same sex, not the feelings of same sex or the attraction. It's literally don't lie with another man. What is the issue? And so it's like a gray area that they found, like a loophole, but it still sucks because they have to stay abstinent. And there is a very famous show that was popular called My Husband's Not Gay. That's a Mormon show where they talk about this more. They call it same-sex attraction, like SSA.
They say, I have SSA. It's like I have cancer. Well, I have SSA.
It's like, wow, same boat. There's a very funny video of Curtis Connor when he reacted to that show. I can very much recommend it.
It seems like a parody, that show, but it's not.
But it's not. That's a crazy thing about it. Denial is a river in Egypt. Your husband is gay. So this is a theology where, at least there's some sort of gray area for you if you have SSA. But the worst enemy of any queer person is, of course, conversion therapy. Conversion therapy is something that I think should be abolished.
And it is in a lot of places.
It is, and I think there was just a French person at the EU Parliament trying to get it banned in all of Europe, which is great. I would love that. Because it basically is like deny yourself therapy, honestly. Therapy is supposed to help you. This is not helping you. It's destroying who you are and just filling you with trauma and guilt. It still categorizes same-sex attraction as an illness. And I'm like, we're in the 21st century. We know it's not an illness. Why are we still here? Because queer people are not crazy.
Yeah.
They will come out of that therapy with more mental issues.
Yeah.
Because that therapy will give them mental issues.
It's a really problematic thing. I remember vaguely, I think it was in California, where they banned conversion therapy, and then there was a huge demo by the ex-gay community saying, hey, conversion therapy helped us. But I mean, really, the majority of people who went through that, they are deeply traumatized by it, because you're going to try to find out, what turned you gay? What was it? And they're going to go back to that childhood trauma thing a lot of times, being like, okay, I can see that, you had an absent father. And it's just, don't try to fix something that's not broken, right?
Yeah.
Because you're just going to create more problems.
You're gonna actually break it.
But it's because they think it's a choice, or it's something that you can be healed from. It's something the devil just put in you and we can pray it away, or it's so damaging to people.
Yeah.
There's also the people who are they're very conflicted, because we do live in a society where if you're homophobic, you will suddenly receive a lot of hate and you're seen as the bad person. And there is almost a feeling of guilt around not being okay with homosexual people or bisexual people. This is how I think the whole love the sinner, hate the sin thing was created, to be like, no, 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 we're not hateful at all. We're so loving and we love the queer community. Like, I've heard this said so many times by so many different people. No, I love the queer people. And I have friends who are gay. And
yeah, it's always, I have black friend, so I'm not racist.
yeah,
It's the same
exactly.
thing.
Yeah, it's literally that. And they just don't realize how hurtful it is, because if you think it's just a choice, then you're not gonna really feel like you're hurting the person. To them, it's not the same as saying, well, I hate red hair. Because with red hair, you were born with it, and that's just discriminatory to be like, I hate red hair. It's obviously like, why would you say something like that? That's mean. But if you say, I hate this choice the person is making, well, I'm not discriminating against them, because it's just a choice. It's not who they are. And so they don't realize that it is actually something that people were born with, and that it is so painful if you're constantly met over and over and over again with this thing of like, no, 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 I love you, but this part of you, that's bad. And that needs to go away. And it hurts. Like, it just really hurts people, but it will not register in their minds that they're acting in a hurtful way, because there is this difference in perception of what homosexuality actually is. And so when you come to church, a lot of times it's kind of in this thing of, you can totally come. You can absolutely be here. You can participate in like just sitting there and listening to the sermons, and you can come to the worship night and I don't know.
To the potluck, whatever.
But you do have to eventually, like, there's this belief that if you pursue your relationship with Jesus, he will eventually convict you of your sin and he will eventually heal you.
Yeah.
And as long as you haven't given up your homosexual tendencies and you're still like, no, I'm gay, you will definitely not have the right to have any sort of leadership position in the church, or any role, not even a leadership position, any role of service in the church. Like, you're not allowed on the worship team, the welcome team, with the kids, like any of those, even minor positions, you're not allowed in, because the church will say, well, no, we would present a false image of ourselves. People might think that we think it's okay that they're gay, but it's not okay, and so we can't have them welcome people. Like, what the heck?
Or work with children, God forbid.
Oh my gosh. Oh, they would just ruin our kids. You just have a really bad position in the church, as long as you don't suddenly say, I am part of the ex-gay community now. And then, well, then you might even be pushed to the forefront to give your testimony and to be celebrated. But as long as you're okay with who you are, or not able to say with conviction that you don't feel those feelings anymore, or aren't like working on no longer feeling those feelings, you can be there, and that's it.
Yeah. Exist, but don't talk. And isn't that so welcoming?
Oh yes, it's so loving. Oh my god, it's so loving.
Oh my god. I kid you not, I'm boiling with anger just hearing this, because it just reminds me of how hurtful it is. It's so mean. It's so mean. And a lot of times I think it's also, I mean, coming out is hard anywhere and everywhere, but especially in a Christian community. Oof, that can lead to three possibilities, but like the worst fearful one, of course, is the you getting kicked out of the family slash church slash community, right?
Mm.
Of them completely going no contact with you and like disinherit you and stuff like that, because that's how extreme this can be, right? Sometimes when you're lucky, you can find a middle ground, you know, where you're like, well, I don't understand you, but we can stay in contact. And how's your roommate? And you're like, that's my wife. Like that. But at least you still have contact with your family. And then very rarely you actually find true acceptance. But then it can also happen that that family then is not accepted in church anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But at least the family will have each other, and the parents are, you know, really supportive of their child and their decisions, and also I think of their courage to even dare to come out
Mm-hmm.
when the circumstances are so unwelcoming to come out. But in cases of those people who are not out yet and struggle with these questions, because like, okay, these are the things that can happen to me. I can have no contact, I can maybe be some semi accepted, or if I'm lucky, truly accepted, but then my family might be ostracized. They are of course thinking about, well, what if I just marry a person of the opposite sex then? What if I just do that? Maybe that will heal me, right? And that might be a crazy thought to you, but this is actually encouraged.
Mm-hmm.
It's so encouraged to get married, because they often say, oh, that will heal you of your queerness. And I kid you not, this is exactly what the ex-gay woman said to us in our identity week. She's like, oh, she was a lesbian, but then she got married and that totally healed her of her feelings towards women. Which is, I'm just like, mm. It's like, our relationship is suffering, let's have a baby. It's not gonna fix anything, babes. That's just gonna make it worse. Now you have another problem and a person to take care of. I don't think that's gonna do anything for you.
After talking about how Christians treat the queer people, we have to move on to how this behavior affects them. And Jesse, you were going to start by telling us about a movie you worked on.
Yes. In 2024, there was this movie released, a German movie called Gotteskinder, which is God's Children. And I worked in a post-production of this movie, and it was just, you know, put on my desk like, hey, can you do work on this? I'm like, sure. And then once I got to the material and saw what was happening, it totally broke my heart, because this movie is about a Christian family.
Is it based on a true story?
I don't know, actually, but I think it was very much inspired by, I think the person who wrote it really visited like charismatic churches, because the way they presented their worship service and their church services was very similar to charismatic churches that you and I have been to, but it was a bit more into also leaning into more cult more, because there was like this coming of age ceremony for the girls, and so there was like a sister and a brother. The parents were like important people in the church, and so it was her coming of age ceremony where she would wear a white dress and, you know, do like a purity dance and whatever. There is this new family that moves in next door, and they have like a very rebellious son, right? And he's like the bad boy. And so she gets closer with him and he shows her a new side, and she always tries to get him with God and, you know, pull him into the church thing, but he's like, that's not my scene, let me show you how life on the other side could be. And then her brother, he is gay, but he's of course not out. And then I think, I don't remember exactly how, but the parents find out about his attraction to another boy. And this boy is also in the church. And so they send him to a conversion camp. So it's these, I think like 5 boys in this conversion camp. And so they talk about, you know, how God wants the best for them. It was really crazy because they did this love bombing thing, but then guilt tripped them at the same time. It was very, very well written. And the boy that the main character is in love with is also at this camp, right? At some point, they just can't, you know, help it anymore, and they start making out, and then they're caught, and then they're punished for what they did. And basically, the end of the story is that this little boy is so guilt-ridden that I think he jumps off a bridge and he kills himself.
Hmm.
And When I saw this, it broke my heart because this story is not far-fetched at all.
Mm-hmm.
And the saddest part was not just that this boy took his own life, but that it didn't change the family's outlook. So the neighbor boy, tries to comfort her, the sister, also kisses her, and then the father catches them and basically punishes his daughter so much and screams at her so much and puts all the guilt, not the love of God, but the guilt of God in her, that she's basically shocked back into her cult thing. And the movie ends with her doing her purity dance in church.
Mm.
And it was just such a good, interesting movie. And while working on it, I cried a lot, and my colleagues were like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "This movie," and they're like, "It's just a movie." I'm like, "No, it's like you don't understand. Like, I come from this world. Like, this is how they presented church. It was just showing, not telling. It was just showing you what it's like being in a church like that as a young girl, indoctrinated with purity culture, and then on the same side, on the other side, also being indoctrinated with only be attracted to the opposite sex. And then the consequences, the deadly consequences this can have if it's not talked about, if it's not changed. And I found it was so interesting that in the end, she was still in the church.
Mm.
And yeah, this basically what we're trying to say here with this anecdote from my life is that suicide is unfortunately one of the consequences this behavior towards queer people from Christians can have. And this is also a reason why we wanted to talk about it, because you're trying to love on people, and what you're really doing is sending them to kill themselves, right? Is with all of that hatred, it can cost people's lives.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, well, this happened once. No,
No,
this
this happens.
They don't see any other way out of how they're feeling than to end their lives.
Exactly. And this boy, I tell you, like, he was, I think, like 14 or something. He was so young. And it was so heartbreaking to see him, just fight with his own self. He was so guilt-ridden, but then also so curious about this other boy. And this other boy was a lot more brazen about, he's like, "I don't care what they're telling us. Like, I like you." It could have been this sweet thing between them, but there was so much around it that ruined it and then cost a life, which it wouldn't have needed to cost.
Yeah. Ending your life is the most extreme thing that can happen.
Yeah.
But before that, there's many steps to get there. And mental health issues for the queer community who grow up in this homophobic environment, whether you want to admit that it's homophobic or not, it is. It causes a lot of psychological stress and mental health issues. People are depressed, they experience intense anxiety, they might self-harm, and there's this incredible self-hatred that's created because you're like, what's wrong with me? Why am I like this? What's wrong with me? And because people are constantly telling you, no, you can't be like this. You can't be like this. This needs to be fixed. And you're like, yeah, but I'm trying to pray it away. There's really stories of people who are like, I was begging God, begging him day after day after day to take this away, and he just wouldn't. And of course, that creates such just emotional and mental anguish. And then you'll try to consciously choose not to feel this way anymore, or consciously say no to this. And then you have situations where people will, for example, take that advice of, okay, so I will just get married to someone of the opposite sex. And then you have these stories of, well, 30 years later, after they've had kids and everything, suddenly the person can't take it anymore and they leave their family for someone else, or because they're like, well, I'm sorry, I'm not attracted to you, I was never attracted to you, and I can't keep pretending. And that is so sad, isn't it? Like, whole families being created only to be destroyed after because somebody was forced to live a lie. And then the children are so hurt by it, the spouse is so hurt by it. And also, I mean, there's something we also have to talk about the spouses of these people because a lot of times someone, like, let's say there's a gay man, yes, but he is trying to not be gay. So he will marry a woman to heal him of his gayness. And a lot of times they don't tell their partner that they actually have those feelings. So a lot of times, even for the woman, when they eventually come out and they're like, by the way, actually I'm gay. For them, it's so devastating.
Yeah.
They too are so hurt by that. Like, you're hurting so many people with this. And then maybe they even have children, the parents separate. And I mean, we know that this will often be very painful for children to experience separation of their parents. So it's just a huge mess that's created by just not accepting people for who they are and by forcing them to try to suppress just a normal part of them.
And it's like so many lives ruined for what?
Yeah,
Literally, what was it all for?
exactly.
So much destruction that just could have been avoided from the get-go that wouldn't have had to be. It makes me really sad.
It is sad.
I think one of the saddest things is like, I mean, I'm happy for the people who have a late coming out, even if it ruins their marriage, but at least they came to that point of self-acceptance. Coming to the point is very hard because in church, all that matters is you're gay. But then actually, once you accept this part of yourself, you realize, oh, it's just a part of me. I'm not just gay. I am also funny. I'm creative. I'm talented at organizing things. You know, there's so many more things about me than just my sexuality. It's not only who I am, it's a part of me. And of course, dictates a lot of my life because my sexuality dictates my partner and stuff like that. But that's not all I am. And realizing that is actually really eye-opening. Also, especially for us, which is why we want to now dip into our personal experiences with this topic.
Again, like as we said, we can't talk about our own experiences without talking about how we were raised. Well, in fact, did our dad ever say anything? I don't remember.
No, he just made fun of my gay teacher.
Yeah, he was more in like the, haha, it's funny.
Yeah.
But our mom was it was very important to her that we know that it's a sin and it's not okay. And so we will talk about that, but I do want to like spoiler it a little and say like she has, like, since we came out and everything, she's not one of those parents who are just like shunning their kids now, but she's really tried to change her perspective a lot, which I respect
And appreciate.
because I know that's not easy. But yeah, so we're gonna tell that in more detail now. So I identify as being bisexual, and my story's kind of fun because I remember that when I was a kid, like everybody was always talking about like having a crush. I'm in love with this guy. I'm in love with this boy, and I hadn't really found a boy yet that I could have said I have. And this was like kindergarten age, okay. There wasn't really a boy that I felt anything. So I chose a boy that I told people that I had a crush on him just because I wanted to be part of the conversation, okay? But actually, the first crush I ever had was on a girl. And this was in my ballet class. I was like 5 years old. And there was a new girl. And she came in and she was just so pretty. And everybody was saying it, where they were all like, oh my gosh, she's so pretty. Do you see how pretty she is? And I was like, yeah, I see how pretty she is. And
don't have to tell me twice.
And so when I came back home, I said that to my mom. I was like, oh, we have a new girl in class and she's just so beautiful and I think I'm in love with her. And then her entire facial expression, I still remember this so clearly, and she told me she doesn't actually remember that. Her entire facial expression changed and it grew very cold and like strict, and she said, no, that's not possible. I didn't really understand. I didn't understand that reaction, I just knew I had messed up in some way.
Mhm.
So I said, oh, well, so I guess I just have a crush on her. And she said, no, that's not possible either. And so I said, well, so I guess I just think she's really pretty. And she said, yes, that's okay. And I mean, I was so young, but I remember the feeling of that and everything so clearly to this day, that it was really the moment where, even though not understanding the reasons, even though not understanding, what was actually going on, I knew that this wasn't okay. And I could never say something like that again, feel something like that again towards another girl. What's very interesting is that in all of my memories of growing up, I remember feeling that there is something inside me that's wrong. Something inside me is disgusting. I don't know what it is, because I had pushed those feelings. I really think in that moment, I had pushed those feelings far, far, like deep, 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 deep down, so that I wasn't even aware of them anymore. But something told me, like, there's something wrong with you. I don't know what, but if people knew it, they would hate you. They would find you disgusting. And what's very interesting is I even remember later as a Christian trying to figure out, where's this feeling coming from? And I never was able to figure it out. And I was trying to heal that feeling with the love of God, and I don't know. But the moment that later on I accepted myself as just, I'm bisexual and that's fine, is the moment I stopped feeling that way. And I suddenly was like, oh, wait, there's nothing wrong with me. So I carried this feeling of there's something wrong with you, there's something disgusting about you around with me my entire life without even understanding what it was. And I find that very interesting, because for me, the fact that I was bisexual was so incredibly suppressed for very, very long that when people were talking about like you making fun of queer people, like I didn't even feel personally attacked. Because I didn't even understand that I was part of that community. There were just moments that now looking back, I'm like, oh yeah, like clearly I was into that girl or into that woman or whatever. What I would have described it as back then was just a fascination with this girl. Like, for example, with my first celebrity crush was Selena Gomez, and I was so obsessed with her. Like, I was just so, like, I found her so pretty. And just when she was anywhere, I would like have these feelings that I didn't register as like being attracted to her,
Is this why we always bought all of her albums?
Maybe. Possibly. But I feel so excited eternally and like, but I never would have registered that for what it was. And also, I mean, being bisexual means I also never struggled being attracted to boys. I fell in love with quite a few boys and later men.
It's good that it's that order. You fell in love with boys and then men.
First boys and then men.
First men,
Yeah, I
then
haven't fallen in love with a boy in a while.
That's good. Sorry, just had to say that.
I think that when you're a lesbian, for example, you will possibly realize way quicker, or at least struggle way more, because you don't fall in love with the guys. And so you're attracted to girls, but you don't fall in love with the guys. So maybe, I'm sure that's a very different experience. But for me, it was really possible for so long to not realize this about myself. And there were just funny situations. Like, for example, there was a girl in my DTS where I remember one day, I remember even in my DTS feeling kind of a crush. And I recognized it as a crush. And so I was confused and I was like, oh, I understand what's happening. It's just that if she was a guy, then she would be my type. Easy.
Solved.
Problem solved. I mean, not for a single second did I question my sexuality in that moment.
The indoctrination was deep.
Yeah, I had another friend later where I didn't register it as a crush. I suddenly found myself thinking about, what it would be like if I was a man. And then I would probably want to date her.
Forcing yourself into the heteronormativity is just funny.
Yeah, I was a little bit confused. I was like, why am I thinking these weird thoughts? I don't get it. I guess the crush for her also wasn't intense enough for me to realize what was really going on. That changed though when I met another friend. We're not friends anymore now, but with her, it wasn't just a crush. Like, I was deeply, deeply in love with her. And it was to a point where it's like the blindfolds were taken off. And I couldn't deny anymore that this was something I had been dealing with all my life. So she was also a Christian, and we never talked about our feelings. And so I don't know if everything was just in my head or if it really was the way I think it was. But my theory is that she also had feelings for me, because she also had this thing of always saying that she had never been in love with a guy before, and whenever a man expressed interest in her, she would feel completely freaked out and like not want to engage at all, and like would like ghost the guy and be like, oh my gosh, no, I'm not ready for that. And she would always say she's not ready for that. At the same time, she was incredibly flirty with women, and especially with me. So the first time I realized I had feelings with her, I was dating my ex, and it was the phase of the relationship with him where he changed his mind every single day of whether he wanted to be with me or not. And so I wasn't receiving a lot of love in that relationship, while I had become friends with her, and she was telling me every time she saw me, like, oh my gosh, you're so beautiful. Oh my gosh. Just confirming me all that, flirting heavily with me. We'd be in the car and the moon would be shining. She'd be like, oh my gosh, this moment is so romantic right now.
What, she would say that out loud? Like mention the romantic vibes?
Yeah.
Oh, dang.
I mean, the heavy flirting, the constant confirmation, and then the fact that I just thought she was absolutely incredible. It really touched my heart, and I could see, oh my gosh, like I am starting to think, like, what if I kissed her right now?
Oh!
Things like that. Like, how would she react? And so I was like, gosh, I think I'm in love with her.
Aww.
I think I'm actually in love with her. And silly me, of course, I confessed this to my boyfriend.
You did?
I did.
I didn't know that.
But I did it in kind of a funny way, because I did it in kind of a accusatory way. Because I had to explain it away, right? I had to be like, why is this happening? And I said, listen, this is happening because you're constantly not showing me love. And she is. I think that's why this is happening. And so he was just, he was like, I don't even know what to say right now. Like, he was so shocked, I think, and disgusted, and like, because for him also, it was just the worst thing you could be or do is have be attracted to someone of the opposite sex.
Same sex, Jenny.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Someone of the same sex.
Someone of the same sex. After that conversation with my boyfriend, I was like, yeah, I really have to do something about those feelings. And so for a while, I was able to convince myself that they were gone. But the relationship I had with her was basically like we were together without talking about it, So we were incredibly touchy with each other. We would say things like, well, if you were a man, I'd want to marry you. And just constantly things like that.
That's crazy.
It is like she asked me to marry her multiple times.
What?
Yeah.
How am I just finding out about this now? Did you keep the story just to tell in the podcast, or what happened here?
I thought I told you. It seems I didn't.
Nah.
But yeah, we were totally obsessed with each other, honestly. Again, I don't know if this was all in my head and maybe she didn't feel that way, maybe, but the signs are pointing to maybe she did.
Very much so, and I noticed it too.
But then, yeah, the friendship fell apart because she went through some very severe mental health issues, and it wasn't possible to stay in touch anymore. I remember like how heartbroken I was, like I was crying and everything when I realized that this friendship was just over. It really hurt. But like even then, I knew how I felt about her, but I thought it wasn't okay. And I was also kind of in denial. I was always like flipping back and forth between being like, okay, I'm choosing not to feel attracted to women. This will no longer happen. It's a choice. God is healing me. And I would find all these reasons, right? Like, for example, because we also actually have a more extroverted, dominant mom and a dad who was more like chill and quiet. So I was like, oh, maybe that's what turned me gay. And so I have to heal the mother wound in my heart or something, And so I was praying a lot about that and trying to connect with God and to have him heal this supposed wound that I had about my mom being too dominant or whatever. And for a while, it was interesting because I always knew that I was just bullshitting, but I would tell people, especially if they were non-Christians and they would want to know what I think about queerness and same-sex attraction and stuff, I would say, well, I actually have a personal story with that. And I would present myself as part of the ex-gay community. And I was just lying. I was absolutely lying.
Now finally you're someone who's telling lies. Normally it was always me lying.
Yes. But I was like, well, I have to, because I want to convince myself, first of all, that I'm not gay, I'm not bi, I'm not attracted to women. And also I have to convince them that it's wrong and God can heal us from this. It almost felt like it was my duty to lie about this. I was bullshitting people, honestly. I was bullshitting myself. And then I would be like, no, God has healed me from this. And then suddenly I would listen. For example, I would listen to the song Boyfriend by Dove Cameron. If you don't know it,
I could be a better boyfriend than him.
It's a very gay song. And suddenly I'd just be like, no, this song is just doing so much with me. And I'm like, no, God still hasn't healed me. And I was just in a huge struggle. And also, okay, wait, I want to go back also to our upbringing here. So the way that we were raised was really with it was so important for our mom for us to know that this is wrong. Like, for example, there's this children's story, like maybe for young teenagers. It's called Die wilden Hühner, the wild chickens.
Yes, the wild chickens.
By Cornelia Funke.
The one who wrote Inkheart. That's maybe more popular because there was a English movie.
Inkheart.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Inkheart. But anyway, so I absolutely loved Die wilden Hühner. And my mom read the books before I did. And then in one of the books, one of the wild chickens comes out as a lesbian. And so my mom, before she allowed me to read the book, she sat me down and she said, listen, in this book, there is a girl who is something that we call a lesbian. And that means that she falls in love with women, but that's wrong. And God doesn't want that. And I just need you to know that before you read the book.
Did you know that when the movie to that came out and Mom and I talked about it, she always said, I don't know what Cornelia Funke was thinking when she did that.
Oh, yeah.
What was she thinking that she said that, just to add to that?
And the way that homosexuals or bisexuals were talked about at home was horrendous, actually.
Oh, yeah.
It was always with immense disgust and oh my God. And yeah, like we said earlier, skipping any queer scenes in movies.
Like, who needs that? We don't want to see that. That's just, ugh, no.
Yeah, that's ugh. It was always with this feeling of, this is the most disgusting thing ever. Which is also why I obviously always thought that something inside of me was disgusting, because some part of me was aware. But so yeah, just to show this was a constant. This was just a constant thing. This is disgusting. This is bad. And then on top of that, the church would... In fact, I think the church was less leaning on the it's disgusting part, but more on the it's sinful and you have to heal this and it's wrong and society is corrupted. It came from all sides, how wrong this was. And so then when I started dating my now husband, at the time we were both still Christian, but he told me that he had been fired from his job, and one of the reasons, because he was working in the church. That was his job. The last job he had at church, he was fired from. And one of the reasons was also because of his defense of the queer community.
He was fired for being a good person.
Because he was just way too questioning things way too much. So I obviously was like, well, listen to me. I have my own little testimony with that. And God healed me, which it's the hilarious thing is that, the moment I talked about where I listened to the Dove Cameron song Boyfriend was just a few days ago, where I was like, no, I think I still have those feelings. And then I went ahead and a few days later told him that God healed me from that and I don't feel that way anymore. And explained to him about my mother wound. Ugh. And so he just listened to me and he said, what if, but what if you're just bi, you know? But like, what if that's just who you are and it's okay? And that's how God made you. And I was so mad at him. I was pissed. I was like, you don't get to say that about me.
You don't get to be right.
That's not okay. He presented his arguments to me. A lot of them also what we talked about earlier of why he doesn't actually think it's a problem to be gay. And he also, because he studied theology, so he has a lot of knowledge of the Bible. And he went like really deep also with trying to explain the historical background and blah, 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 blah. And I was just listening to that and I was very internally resistant. But also there was a part of me that must have listened because I told him, listen, I don't want to hear anything from you anymore about this. You don't get to call me bi. You don't have that right. I'm the one who decides what to call me. I was very aggressive about it. But it made me think. And he said to me, well, have you ever tried to experience what it's like to just accept this about yourself and just see what that does with you? And I had to admit that I hadn't. I had to admit it to myself, not to him, obviously.
He knew before you.
And so I was like, okay, fine. I will do the experiment just for the sake of it. I will just pretend like it's okay and this is just part of who I am. And that was the moment where suddenly I could feel this feeling of there's something wrong with me, there's something disgusting about me lift. And I was like, whoa, that shocked me because I had been searching for the reason of why I was feeling that way all my life. And I was like, I just found it. And so then I was like, well, wait a minute. If what the church has been telling me actually made me hate myself, be disgusted with myself, and have such a bad relationship with me, like, I was just unable to love myself because there was always this feeling of, no, you aren't lovable though. And suddenly that was lifted. And I was like, if what the church has been telling me made me feel that way, then it can't be good. It just can't be. Like, I'm sorry, but I can't defend that anymore. It was something I just had to process where I was like, okay, so now I've accepted this about myself. And then for a while I was a little bit bummed that now I'd already met a guy that I was super in love with and that I kind of wanted to marry.
Kind of. You did.
we did get married, yes. But that I could, I mean, at the time we were just dating, where I was like, I could really see a life with this guy. And I don't want to just leave him to experiment. But also, I'm sad that I probably will never have the chance. It bummed me out. Now I really just don't care. At the time, I was a little bit bummed out. And it was kind of a process, but the end result was like, first of all, was realizing this actually, you know what, this doesn't change who I am at all. I was always this, and now I can just accept it and accept who I am and have a good relationship with myself. I'm still the same person, and it's actually not that much big of a deal, and it's really fine. Now, this is the true testimony, the one where I'm not bullshitting anybody. Just to show, wow, the church did really hurt me, despite me not even being aware of my feelings. They weren't in my conscious awareness, but it really hurt me. And it led to a very bad relationship that I have with myself. And rejecting what the church was saying healed me. And that is the testimony that I would like to share. Not the ex-gay one. What was your experience with all of this, Jessie?
Well, you're the reason that I stopped being a homophobe. Because it was your coming out that made me question. Because when you came out to me and I said, well, but that's sinful. You're like, well, but that's hurtful. I was like, I don't want to be hurtful. This is my most favorite person in the entire world. And I don't want to do or say anything to make her sad or to hurt her or be mean to her. And then you were like, yeah, so question, girl. They lied to us. And I was like, they lied to us? So I did my own research with help from you, of course, because you're my researcher. But in the end, I came to this conclusion that, oh, yeah, the things that the church had been telling me were pretty much all of it was wrong. And we went into details of all of them. But to flashback a little further, I was a huge homophobe. Like, I was bullied for being homophobic. I mean, I was bullied for a multitude of things, mostly just existing. But in my 10th year of school, when I was like around 16, I was like the Jesus freak and proud of it, but also a homophobe and proud of it. And one of my biggest regrets in life is once when they asked us in religion class, what is one thing you can't tolerate in the world? And I raised my hand and said, homosexuality. With a gay kid in the class, so like, oh my gosh, girl, the heck are you doing? So, of course, that just gave them more ammunition and they bullied me and they bullied me so hard I left the school and went to an all Christian girls school. Okay, so that was that. But yeah, I would use the same arguments. I would have arguments with classmates and I would tell them all it's not natural, all the things that we mentioned before. I would believe them. I took all of it at face value. And then I was in this for years and I also had this, feeling disgusted and stuff. Funnily enough, though, I always noticed that it didn't bother me when I saw two girls PDAing at all, actually. And I was like, okay, why doesn't that bother me? But it's still disgusting, like that. So that was like maybe the first hint of like, maybe you would like to experience that yourself, maybe. But yeah, when I was a kid, I never had crushes on any girls. It was always just boys, 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 boys. And I think for me, because I was bullied already in kindergarten. So the bullying basically started when I was 3 years old. It paused for a year when we lived in the US. I wasn't bullied there. It was the best year of my life when I was 5 till I was 6. And then from first grade to 10th grade through, I was bullied again. So I was bullied around like 12 years of my life. And I think because basically all the girls, except for like 2 or 3, were always mean to me. And so when I had a crush on someone, it would always be on someone who wasn't mean to me. And since all the girls were mean to me, and the girls that weren't mean to me probably weren't my type, I would just always have a crush on someone who noticed me. Somebody would just smile at me and I was like, I'm in love with you, So I'm not taking any of my crushes at all seriously because it was not out of, oh, I love this person or I like their style or whatever. No, they're nice to me.
Oh, isn't there this super cute story of when just a boy
Oh
at the
my God.
pool waved at you?
Underwater, mind
And you
you.
were like, I think I think he's in love with me and I think I'm in love with him.
Yeah, at the swimming pool. I was diving and somebody waved at me. I'm like, oh, future husband. That's the way my mind worked. Then you might have thought, how was it like in the only girls' school? It was German school system back then, very intense school system in Bavaria. I had no time for anyone's feelings or my own. We were all stressed, depressed, and anxious. So like there was no time for anything like that. But after school, I, fell in love with this one guy I was hung up on for years, who then, got together with someone else. We talked about this person, I think, in our first episode. And so for me, the whole girls thing, I was too homophobic to realize that, girl, you are frolicking in Narnia. You're so far in the closet. You don't realize that you are in the closet. And it took me years to realize, oh, I'm in the closet. First, before I could even realize that I had any attraction also to women, I first had to completely get rid of this homophobia. And it was so deeply internalized and it was a super long process, like a process of like 4 years to really root that out. One of the main things, of course, was your coming out. And then also the show Heartstopper truly helped me not find it disgusting, to truly find joy in a same-sex relationship. Having it displayed in such a wholesome, healthy way just really helped get rid of my homophobia. But then it still took a year after finding Heartstopper for me to realizing, oh, I might like women too. And my bi awakening for that was Vi from Arcane. I think I'm not alone with that. I was watching Arcane season 2 and I was like, wait, what? This animated character is too hot for me not to be straight, And so that's when I realized, oh, I think you might be you might be bi. And so, yeah, we're two bisexies. Hello. I mean, I'm still figuring things out, and I'm still like, I wouldn't fully label myself as being bi. I'm just like, maybe I'm like bi fluid or something, but I'm definitely not straight, is what I'm going with. And I don't feel the need to have to label myself. I'm just so happy, you know, the closet was glass. And the funniest thing is, like, we lived in Berlin for a little while, and there I met one of my best friends now, and all of them thought, oh, she's gay. All of them. And they thought it for a good few months. But apparently I had such gay vibes that they were like, huh? And then, like, last year I came out to them, and all of them were like, duh. Everybody, like, all of you knew it before I did. Like, huh? Well, how did this happen? It was really funny. But then when I tell my friends who knew me from childhood, they're like, you're what? It's very interesting because I think, you know, they just grew up with me and my homophobia and whatever. And like, this girl is straight, that now it's a complete surprise to them. And I don't know if I came out to everyone, but well, here we are. It's very interesting to see, like, how I was clocked before I even knew. It was really funny. Like, they were like, the closet was glass, girl. But I had to really get to the point first of really rooting out the deep, indoctrinated, internalized homophobia. And I'm still working to get rid of that. And also the whole purity culture thing, which we will probably talk about in a different episode. But yeah, this is still a process, but I'm happily going to pride parades and feel represented by the community. And I'm also proud, you know, to say this is part of who I am, and I'm happy that way. It's a fun thing to explore this new side right now. For me, it's still like new because it wasn't long. I mean, Arcane season 2 came out like a year or two ago. It's been a journey, but I'm still very new to the whole community, and I'm still like asking about terms and stuff. I'm like, so what does this mean? But it's very sweet because I went a few dates already with a few women, and one of them became a close friend, and she really helped me, like guided me through like the terminology and how she found out and everything, and just like took my hand and showed me around. I'm like, oh, this is a nice place to be, and I'm glad that I'm welcomed in a way where I'm like, oh, I feel safe here, I feel at home here. And interestingly enough, safer and more at home than I ever did in church, because it's a place where I'm not judged for that part of me, and it's a good place to be.
But do you have any like childhood or teenage memories where you're like now thinking, oh, clearly I was feeling something?
Oh yeah. So at the Only Girls School, we did a play, and I was the main lead, and we did a Shakespeare play. I think it was it Much Ado About Nothing? I think it was that one. And the person playing my love interest, I think I had a crush on her, very, very deep down, because she was just so cool.
I mean, even I had a crush on her just watching her play. That was also a confusing moment for me when I was watching that play. I was like, oh, what are these feelings?
No, but she was such a good, she was just so cool. But back then I was like, oh, I want to be her. You know, it's the, do I like her or do I want to be her, that thing. And I always went with, oh, I want to be her. It didn't even occur to me that I could have a crush on this girl. But I think like that's when I can remember. And then I think my first time I had gay panic was actually last year, a year ago, when I was in London, and I went to a cafe, and this very, very, very attractive woman called me love, because they call you love down there. What you need, love? And I was like, marry me. And I forgot how to speak English. I panicked so bad, I forgot how to speak English. I was like, coffee. I fumbled hard. Yeah. I still think of her sometimes. No, and that was also moments where like, yeah, you're not straight.
Yeah, but that's interesting how for you, because for you the homophobia was also a lot bigger than for me. I think I internalized way more the like, this was wrong, I have to see this as wrong, trying to convince myself. And for you, you like totally swallowed the pill. You were like, no, that's disgusting. That's interesting.
And the tiny little hints that might have been there, I couldn't even acknowledge because I was so caught up in that it's wrong. Recently I started depth psychology, so like going into very like childhood thingies and stuff like that. So maybe I'll have some stories to tell in a few months. Maybe people uncover something and I'm like, oh, you've been in love with every girl. I don't know. I mean, the thing is I don't have a lot of memories of my childhood. I mean,
yeah, that's true.
My clear memories that I can tell you which year, which people, they start when I'm like around 16.
Oh, really? That late?
I mean, like 10th grade at the end-ish, and then when I switch schools is when they become clear. So I can't tell you if I had a crush on a girl when I was a kid because I don't remember much.
Yeah, no. Especially if it's something so subconscious that you wouldn't really remember. It's different than when you tell everybody, I have a crush on this guy.
Yeah.
And then it's repeated over and over, but it's just like kind of a moment and you already barely remember. That probably makes that hard, yeah.
And I didn't really keep a well-written diary either.
The pool boy is in
The
your
pool boy
diary.
is mentioned. What do you mean you read my diary, Jennifer? Why do you know this?
You read me your diary.
Yeah, okay, fine. I just remember I had one page, it was just a heart and a boy's name in the middle. That was the entire entry.
Yeah, so those are just our personal stories, and we thought we might want to share just 2 stories of people that we have observed, and we want to do this very carefully because of course we can never prove what's actually going on inside people. So it's really just observations, but they're both people who have admitted to feeling same-sex attraction or struggling with that. So one of them is a former friend of mine, because now that I'm no longer Christian, he doesn't seem to want to be in contact with me anymore. I remember that when I started questioning and I just started accepting myself as bisexual, and I was like, listen, dude, like I have so many things that are starting to be a problem for me with Christianity. And I said one of them being also the whole homosexuality is a sin thing. I was hit with the thing that I would always hit other people with, where he was like, no, see, I used to struggle with these feelings myself. And then I just made the choice to no longer feel that way. And now he's happily married. And what was interesting to me about that conversation is like, I asked him point blank, do you still feel attracted to men? Does that still happen to you? And he would not answer the question directly. The closest he got to it was telling me, like, I haven't found a man that I would leave my wife for.
Wow.
So I was like, oh, wait, is he doing the same thing I was doing with just telling people? You know, like, why wouldn't he just say, exactly, I don't feel that anymore? Why can't he answer the question? Interesting. It's an observation. Do without what you want, right?
Exactly. And another observation we have also with a former mutual friend who also admitted in I think a baptism testimony, right?
Mm-hmm.
That they had been struggling with same-sex attraction, but through this baptism it will be healed or whatever. I don't know nowadays how they're approaching this topic. I think they're still a believer, but they've also not been in a relationship for the past 10 years.
Yeah, because he always said he's not ready yet.
He's not ready yet, and he didn't like hugging us as girls. I always felt like there was a and he would shy away from physical contact. Like when you wanted to pray for him, he would like flinch a little.
Mm.
You know, when you as a girl put your hand on his shoulder.
Just with girls?
Just with girls, not with the boys.
Mm. Yeah, I remember that he always said he's not in a relationship with a girl yet because he still has things to deal with.
I mean, I respect it. Respect anyone who's like, I'm not ready for a relationship yet. I have things to deal with. But like in this case, my assumption is that this person just isn't straight and that's why they're not in a relationship. But like, I mean, it's not my business, but it's just something that we've witnessed that makes us sad because we've been there.
Yeah.
We've been there, we've lived through the same arguments, played them in our heads, but we didn't stop there.
Yeah, and that's something I can really say is that I am incredibly thankful that I did move away from the church and from this type of indoctrination, and that now my sexuality just isn't a big deal.
Totally.
It honestly just doesn't matter. I really had a phase where I didn't want people to know, even though I had accepted it about myself, and I was very selective about it. And now I'm just really, I just don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't care who knows or doesn't know, because to me, it's just, it doesn't matter. And I love that I get to be at this point now, because it used to be the biggest deal ever.
Because people make it such a big deal. And frankly, it's nobody's business.
Yeah.
It's nobody's business, actually. But everybody is always in everyone's business. So that's it for today's episode. Just a reminder, this podcast is not about trying to convince anyone of anything, but about sharing our experiences and maybe helping others realize they're not alone with their faith struggles.
Next time, we will talk about Amanda Montell's book, Cultish, The Language of Fanaticism, and compare what she says with our experiences in the evangelical church. Thank you for listening to us talk about our journeys and tuning into The Way, the Truth, and the Lies, hosted by Jennifer
and Jessica.
Hear you next time.